Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He's got a huge brain. And now, here's Brian.
Feel my heat taking you higher. Burn with me, because heaven's on fire. Oh yes, it is time for another great episode of Sovryn Tech. Of course, the Golden Stallion here with you, and always a good time, isn't it? At least I think so. I don't just think so, because I get tons of emails. People telling me they can't wait for my show to come out. I am so honored, and I just want to get this out first thing. We now get over 1,000 listeners a week, 1,000 listeners an episode. Or I'll say a week. Maybe that's the better way to put it. 1,000 listeners a week of Sovryn Tech. I am so honored. I don't know how exactly the show's getting spread, because, you know, I think I talked about this on my personal Facebook page. I was mentioning it to some people, because I think Sovryn Tech falls under the realm of guilty pleasure for a lot of people, because, you know, I can understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to share Sovryn Tech on Facebook, you know, to where maybe your mother or your grandmother or who knows who, your uncle or something, could possibly see, like, whoa, what are they listening to? And then they hear it and they go, holy shit, what was that? You know, I can understand. I'm not judging. I'm not saying that there's anything, you know, wrong with you not sharing it. That's fine. But I guess I just wonder, okay, so it's not getting shared on social media. How exactly is it getting shared? Is this something that's just getting spread around in whispers? You know, hey, did you hear Sovryn Tech last week? Man, that shit was tight. I don't know. Anyway. So thank you all so much. It's really exciting to have a show grow, especially a show that, well, you know, there's this old Egyptian proverb, that goes something along the lines of, you know, he who tells the truth has no friends. And sometimes I feel like that really gets, it feels applicable to me a lot of times, just my own opinion on it. And, you know, so for someone to lay out so many, I guess what a lot of people would consider to be controversial, because I certainly get plenty of hate mail, so I guess it's safe to call it controversial. It's amazing for that to really grow. In my opinion, especially something that's so, you know, kind of no holds barred, to use a wrestling term. But anyway, let's get into the rapid fire stories. Enough about this stuff, because we've got a lot to talk about. And again, we have a really great show lined up. Please look forward to hacker stories. I have something very, very powerful to share from a friend of the show, and someone I consider a friend in reality. During hacker stories that I really think is an important message to share. So keep looking out for that. Anyway, real quick with rapid fire stories, you will notice. Never mind. I'm gonna share that later. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Internet Explorer. I know. I keep talking about Microsoft. It seems like every week during rapid fire stories, I'm giving them far more press than they deserve. But it turns out that there's a test done every year to see which web browser drains your laptop battery the most. And, you know, it's an amazing thing, but Internet Explorer wins every year in not draining your laptop battery the most. I guess it's the only thing it does better than any other web browser, but it is what it is. You know, so I don't know. If you use Internet Explorer, hey, you know, it's your choice. But really, again, I would just hope people will run away from Windows as fast as they can. Google has sold Motorola to Lenovo, of all people. Now, they are keeping the patents. So, you know, maybe that's all that Google was really after, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that this happened, because they paid like $13 billion. I mean, just a crazy amount of money for Motorola to buy out, you know, Motorola in its entirety. And then they sold it to Lenovo for like $2.9 billion. I mean, that's a huge loss. Those patents got to be worth, I don't know. They must be great patents. That's all I can say about the matter. Not understanding that whole thing at all. I'm not sure exactly what patents Motorola had that were that grand. I mean, they certainly, if there's great patents that Motorola had, they didn't get implemented in the Moto X or the Moto G or any of those. So I don't know what exactly they had, but maybe this has to do with something, at Google X. Maybe it's that next thing that one of the heads of Google X said, we're not working on tablets or Google Glass, we're working on something bigger. Maybe that's what Motorola had in its, had baking in the kitchen. I don't know. So now Lenovo's got Motorola. They have a name that they can use to break into the smartphone market, which they're already doing a good job of breaking into the market in other parts of the world, but maybe in the US now they have a recognized name. Who knows? We'll see what happens with that. But the really interesting thing, and this is important to point out because I don't want to sound boastful, but about a little over a year ago on Sovryn Tech, I had mentioned, I said, boy, in the next 5 years, by 2018, the two big companies are not going to be Apple and Google. It's not going to be Microsoft and Google. There always seems to be those two companies that seem to be competing. Like before Apple and Google, it was Apple versus Microsoft to some degree. You always have that. And what I claimed is that it's going to be Samsung versus Amazon. Those are going to be the two major hardware and software tech companies that are going to be battling it out by 2018, and that things like Google and Apple are really just going to fall by the wayside. Not go away, like Yahoo still hasn't gone away, right? In fact, maybe they're even resurging to a degree. But I think Amazon and Samsung will be the main tech companies, in the next few years. And I think I'm being vindicated because Amazon announced, or there's rumors, I think they're more than rumors, but for the technical meaning of it, yes, they're rumors, that Amazon will be releasing a sub $300 Android-based game console. Can you believe that? An Amazon game console. I mean, they've got all the money in the world to throw at it. Now, I mean, there's been talk about Google coming out with a game console too. Haven't seen anything serious about that. But Amazon looks like they're going to beat everybody to the punch. Not only that, so Amazon's going to attempt to take over your living room. Okay. First off, they have the best tablets on the market right now. I'm not saying their software is the best. I'm saying hardware. They have the best hardware for the buck, for the money out there. Okay. And there's a follow-up on that in a second here. So they can take over the tablet space. There was talks about them, doing deals with HTC, which arguably, in my opinion, make the best phones in the world right now. Like the HTC One and the HTC One Max, hands down, best phone on the planet. If it had a removable battery, anyway, great phones. So Amazon has those angles, and now what they're doing, like I said, how they have the best tablets in the world with a Kindle. They're turning Kindles, they're adding credit card readers onto Kindles, and they're turning them into POS systems, and not piece of shit, they're turning them into point of sale systems. And that's incredible, because when you figure that even the high-end Kindle Fire HDX 7-inch or whatever, runs under runs under $300. That you could buy a point of sale system for under $300. Look, I used to work for PAR Technologies. They're one of the largest point of sale companies in the world, and we sold our flagships for which was called the Vigo. They would sell for over the lowest end, and this was a piece of it was the low end one was rough. With the low end one was at $800. To get a halfway decent one like would get sold to McDonald's, okay, would be around $1,300. And the price could keep going up. You could get what was called the Vigo, we would call it the Cadillac, meaning it was the highest end. That would sell for $3,000. And yet here's Amazon selling you something with plenty of power, being the Kindle, okay, and it's going to be a point of sale system. Incredible. So they're going to take over the retail space, even though, they've already kind of conquered retail by the fact that, that Amazon.com just has this incredible customer service, has everything you could want, and ships it sometimes same day. depending on where you live. So they've already conquered it in that way, but now they're really going to conquer it because they're going to offer what I see to be, an unbeatable, an unrefusable deal in getting a point-of-sale system into your store. I mean, it's phenomenal. Just add a credit card reader onto a Kindle, and the Kindle costs under $300. How can you beat that? And that's all you need is that one piece. Takes up very little desk space, too. So, I mean, you could almost do kiosks with it, and I'm sure that's coming, too. Yeah, I mean, really. So, kudos to Amazon. I think, I think that's amazing. Not the best philosophically inclined tech company out there, but they are going to be, I think, like I said, by 2018, I'll say it again. I said it a year ago. It's going to be Amazon versus Samsung. That's happening. Another quick point is that amazingly, Edward Snowden is getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Can you believe it? I think that's fantastic. At first, I didn't believe it. That's why I asked you, can you believe it? And I didn't, but it's true. He is getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Also, here's the last bit of news, then we're going to get into a pretty interesting story that I have lined up for our main story. But for the first time, and I think this explains a lot as to why maybe, the British Empire, the British Empire for a long time, for hundreds of years, was huge. It was the largest empire ever. I mean, it was just this massive, empire, and it started to wane. And I finally figured out. I think I figured out why, because it was just reported. They just got photographic evidence of this last week. When we're in February 2013. Last week, they found, for the first time in 800 years, they found a beaver in England. I can't believe it. There were no beavers in England for 800 years, and they found one again. No one knows how it got there, but there's beaver in England, so maybe the British Empire. Sorry, it's a true story, but of course, I did a play on words. Anyway, so kudos to the British. You've got beaver fever again. Good for you. Anyway, let's really switch gears here and let's get into the main story. And this week we got an update on a story that we talked about briefly in the past. And that story has to do with a while back, TorMail got shut down. TorMail was it was a free email service that was available on Tor, but the handy thing about it was that it could email out of Tor, which for a little, I mean, lots of services can do that now, but that was kind of a unique thing for some time, and a lot of people really came to trust TorMail and came to use it. I have used it years ago. A long time ago I used it. I haven't used it in some time. There's better Tor-based email services that you can grab, most of which you have to pay for to some degree. But thanks to Bitcoin now, it's very easy to pay for these things. So you can get a premium product now thanks to Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies, which I think is fantastic. So anyway, the FBI seized all of TorMail's data and is using it to catch hackers. This is from Gizmodo. And if you had any faith left in anonymous email services, now would be the time to let that go. New court documents show that in chasing down associates of Freedom Hosting, the FBI managed to download the entire email database of TorMail. And now it's using that using that information to take on the darknet. It's unknown exactly how many users or how much data is in the TorMail network, but we do know that the FBI has it all. The agency obtained a search warrant for a TorMail account connected to a Florida man accused of stealing credit card numbers in order to search its own copy of the database. It appears that the FBI acquired the database while using malware to investigate Freedom Hosting last year. As Wired put it, the tactic suggests the FBI is adapting to the age of big data with an NSA-style collect-everything approach, gathering information into a virtual lockbox and leaving it there until it can obtain specific authority to tap it later. In the past 6 months, we've learned that the FBI is using malware to expose the anonymous internet, and the NSA has been going after Tor for years. And now it seems that federal authorities have been successful in breaking down the wall of anonymity that kept the internet safe for a lot of users. We've also learned that despite his advisor's recommendations, President Obama is content continuing the bulk collection of data that drew scrutiny to the NSA in the first place, albeit in a different form. And while Tor and its related services are still good for a lot of things, anonymity is apparently no longer one of them. Okay, so now Freedom Hosting, Freedom Hosting was like based out of Ireland, and the FBI a few months ago did a raid on it and took all those servers, and clearly that must have been where TorMail to some degree was being hosted, and they got it all. They got everything that was done on TorMail. Now, okay, yes, if you are a user of TorMail, if you were doing if you were doing some kind of quote-unquote illegal, okay, I'm using conventional terms because I don't care what you do. If you're doing some kind of illegal business, okay, yeah, it's, I gotta admit, it's scare time. It's, it's time to watch out because they've got it all. And I think a lot of people were using TorMail without any kind of encryption. They weren't using PGP necessarily. They just figured... and I don't think it was an unfair thought. They just figured that governments around the world were just too damn stupid, to be able to even, really handle Tor. Now, of course, people want to say, okay, the U.S. Navy funded Tor, blah, 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 blah. How the fuck can you trust it? How dare you trust it? If the government money goes somewhere, don't trust it. Look, if you're not going to trust something because government money is involved, trust me on this statement. Don't use anything. At all, okay? Because there's government money fucking everywhere, okay? This annoys me so much. I'm not saying Tor is a magic bullet. Clearly it isn't, okay? I'm just saying this whole argument about, well, the government invented it or the government put money behind it or whatever as a reason to no longer use something? No, okay? Sorry, ridiculous. Jacob Applebaum, a guy that I tremendously respect. He is one of the lead guys at the Tor project. He is an anarchist. Okay? He's an anarchist. Got it? So he doesn't like governments. And let me tell you something else. He's a guy. He's bisexual. Guess what? If you're bisexual, generally I like to think you don't care for conventionalisms or culturalisms either. Okay? So he doesn't like any of the hierarchies and constructs that exist in this world, and yet he supports the Tor project. Okay? So to some degree, I trust that. If you want to switch gears here, I'd be far more concerned of not worrying about companies that have taken government funding or projects that have taken government funding than I would about people in companies that are not liberty-minded at all. Like Google, okay? Larry Page, everybody's like, oh my God, Google's going to take Bitcoin. This is so fucking exciting. Larry Page, I have it on good, for lack of a better word, authority, as in from a guy who's had Larry Page in his house multiple times, that he is not a libertarian. And it's coming from somebody who is a libertarian and understands what libertarian can mean with a big L or a small L. Larry Page is not a libertarian. Larry Page does not care about freedom. Okay? Got it? My point being is that government money swings both ways. Okay, yes, Google is taking money from for government contracts, okay? And one company has an anarchist at the head of it. The other company has, essentially, I'll call a fascist, because I'm not going to use the word socialist in a negative context, okay, at the head of it. So there, take that for what you will, okay? I'd much rather trust the people who are involved than the money that flows into it, okay? All right, we're clear on that. So, yeah, but no matter what, this is scary, okay? This is very, very scary if you were a user of TorMail or you did business with people that use TorMail. This is a quite frankly, a very terrifying prospect. The ways that something like this can be resolved, and I'm hoping that a lot of people did this, because if they didn't use some form of encryption, what I hoped that happened is that they did the first rule of when you go on Tor. You are no longer you. I say this all the time. Okay? When you go on Tor, you're another person. You come up with another name. Okay, whatever that may be. You can pretend you're the Green Ranger. I don't care. All right, just be someone else when you're on Tor. Don't be you. Now, of course, if you're using Tor in a general sense, like, well, I just always use Tor for anonymity or whatever, well, yeah, then you can be you. Okay, but if you're using Tor for perhaps some of the unique services that Tor offers, don't be you. Just don't. Okay? Just pretend you're somebody else. Have fun with it. I don't agree with the idea, like Gizmodo's making this huge case that anonymity is impossible on Tor. I totally disagree with that. Tor is still a great thing. Yes, again, the FBI seized a whole ton of data, okay? And yeah, and this also raises the great point that I like to bring up all the time, is that the FBI is just as bad as the NSA. And again, the FBI has plenty of oversight, and they're getting away with doing all of this stuff. As to where, because the common argument always comes up that the NSA, doesn't have a lot of oversight, and they can't work with oversight, otherwise they couldn't achieve their goals. That's not true for the FBI. So either way, no one in government cares about your privacy, really, at all. In fact, Rand Paul doesn't care about your privacy either because he wants Snowden locked up. Okay? All right. So there so have we eliminated enough sacred cows yet in the first segment? Because we'll keep trying to take out some more. But anyway, so I disagree that, that Tor is somehow, now it's just totally breached and you can never use it. Frankly, that sounds to some degree, and this is unfortunate that this is coming from Gizmodo, but that sounds very much like like a hit piece and a thing to say, don't use Tor. There were things in the NSA slides that we have from Edward Snowden, who I hope will be the next Nobel Peace Prize winner. He's probably the most deserving person I've heard in my lifetime. And well, I mean, there was others who deserved it, but he's obviously done a whole hell of a lot. The two things, okay, that the slide showed that the NSA didn't like were Tor and PGP. Hated both of them. Couldn't stand them. Okay? So that, that's a pretty good gauge for what we know, what we're aware of that's out there. It's a pretty good gauge to, say, okay, those are the things I should be using. And yeah, Golden Stallion, I totally recommend using Tor often. Using a VPN. Go ahead and use a VPN and Tor. Who cares, go all the way. So use VPN, use Tor, go ahead and use PGP. Again, there are, now you got to ask yourself, are you okay with using email anymore with Tor? Well, that's a good question to ask. I think, OTR, or especially you have like Chrome extensions like CryptoKit, where you get PGP, built into it. And it's very, very easy to use. Or if you use some kind of like OTR, which is off the record messaging, some kind of OTR thing like CryptoCat or Pigeon with OTR or whatever, or Chat Secure, you take your pick. I recommend those as being definitely the better way to kind of get in touch with people. Even, and maybe you want to take into question TorChat. A lot of people use TorChat. Maybe you want to debate the use of that, because that's based on Tor. It's OTR, so I don't see how having servers is going to help anything with that. But these are the things to consider. So again, if you're going to use Tor, the way to solve this whole problem, and it's sick, it's ridiculous that the FBI is doing this, but the way to solve this whole problem is, look, when you go on Tor, be someone else. And have fun with it. I'll be back with more. This is Sovryn Tech.
Stone Age wasn't enough for you?
Then we heard it. The sound of something terrible being born.
This is madness.
Station 3 to Commander Ivanova.
Centauri have launched a full-scale assault.
Time is coming on! It's our turn now!
2 million tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. A world where empires rise and fall, where dreams are born and die, where war and hatred are challenged by love and faith. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity. It is our last, best hope for peace, for victory, for freedom. It is Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
Tech Roulette. Want to play?
It is time for Tech Roulette, where I cover stories that get sent to me through the various channels that I make available. Of course, SovrynTech at riseup.net. And, you know, real quick, it is, I mean, I'm sure you already know this, but if you're hearing this on one of the global internet networks, radio networks that SovrynTech is available on, it's Sovryn. And actually, I'll talk a little bit about that name during the listener emails segment today, because during listener emails, I got a slew of questions for a lot of new listeners. Like I said, we've you know, SovrynTech, we now get over 1,000 listens a week, so that's a lot of new. You know, that's a lot of new people listening to the show. And so maybe they haven't listened to, I mean, we're almost 60 episodes, counting specials, you know, it's probably almost 100, or well, 70 or 80 anyway. But, you know, we're 60 episodes in. And so there's a lot of people who might not get maybe all of the memes that I use, or all of the, you know, catchphrases or you know, a lot of stuff. So I'm going to cover some of that during listener email. Like, what does triple black mean? You know, things of that nature. So anyway, but yeah, SovrynTech at riseup.net is a way that you can send stories to me. You can also message me on SoundCloud if you have a SoundCloud account. I love, and you don't have to, you know, you can be totally anonymous on SoundCloud. You don't have to use your real name, you know, and it's free. Now, of course, SovrynTech.com, okay, in and of itself is a SoundCloud page, but it offers everything I need. And I think it's something that's going to become more and more popular with podcasters, is that they will just use SoundCloud pages for their entire landing page, essentially, you know, and to communicate, because SoundCloud now has they updated their messaging system on there, and you don't have to have a SoundCloud account to listen to you know, to anything on SoundCloud, or to access anything on SoundCloud. But to use a lot of the services available on SoundCloud, you do have to have a SoundCloud account, but you can just make a bumkus one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be real. But it's a great way to, the messaging system on SoundCloud, and I've gotten quite a few people message me on there, works really, really well. I love it. So that's another way that you can get stories to me or listener emails to me. Also, you know, if you know, you can send it to me on Google Plus. Not that I tout that much. Or you can send it to me even like ask.fm, but no one's really using that, so I think I'm going to be ending up canceling that anyway. You know, but there's plenty of ways. Twitter, of course, and you can direct message me on Twitter. It's perfectly fine. I know some people think that's a breach of etiquette, and I understand that, but for me, it's okay. So plenty of ways to get in touch with the show, to send stories in for Tech Roulette that you want me to talk about, but then also if there's like a topic you want me in particular to talk about, generally that'll get saved for listener emails. So, you know, feel free, get in touch, okay? I may not respond to you if you have like questions right then and there. I may not respond to you, you know, right away, but please, you know, keep sending them in. I've gotten tons of great stories, and it, you know, and admittedly, it makes my life easier, you know, because people find incredible things across the internet. And this is an interesting thing, and it's that I have this week from a listener, and it's a topic I talk about quite a bit, and at some point, yes, I will have a guest on. At least I have every intention of having a guest on that can maybe address a lot of these issues, and it has to do with essentially transhumanism, which is something I'm, for all intents and purposes, looking forward to. But let's read the story, and then we can talk about that, because I do, admittedly, I have some reservations about transhumanism. And so this is also from IO9. Scientists raise the alarm on human enhancement technologies. The Royal Society, along with the Academy of Medical Sciences, British Academy, and Royal Academy of Engineering, recently concluded a workshop called Human Enhancement and the Future of Work, in which they considered the growing impact and potential risks of augmentation technologies. Now, boy, the name of this workshop, isn't that just creepy in and of itself? Human enhancement and the future of work, as in, like, that's all we're good for? Is to do work? That sucks. Anyway, in their final report, the collaborative team of scientists and ethicists raised serious concerns about the burgeoning trend and how humanity is moving from a model of therapy to one in which human capacities are greatly improved. The implications, they concluded, should be part of a much wider public discussion. Specifically, the report expressed concerns about drugs and digital technologies that will allow people to work harder, longer, and smarter. The resulting implications to work and human values, they argue, may not necessarily be a good thing. It's quite possible, they argue, that employers will start to demand, either implicitly or explicitly, that employees augment themselves with stimulants such as Adderall. What the fuck? Wait a minute. Isn't this what am I in the 1910s? Are we back in the industrial age? What the hell's going on here? All right, we'll keep reading. Similarly, the workshop considered the potential for the other smart drugs that can enhance memory and attention, as well as physical and digital enhancements such as cybernetic implants and advanced machine interfacing technologies. From the report, work will evolve over the next decade, with enhancement technologies potentially making a significant contribution. Widespread use of enhancements might influence an individual's ability to learn or perform tasks, and perhaps even to enter a profession, influence motivation, enable people to work in more extreme conditions or into old age, reduce work-related illness, or facilitate earlier return to work after illness. Oh yes, because, you break your leg, no compassion there, buddy. Get your ass back at the job. Get, clock in. The buzzer's going off. Let's do this. Oh, wow. Anyway, at the same time, however, they acknowledge the potential efficacy and demand for such technologies, prompting the call for open discourse, again from the report. Although enhancement technologies might bring opportunities, they also raise several health, safety, ethical, social, and political challenges, which warrant proactive discussion. Very different regulatory regimes are currently applied. For example, digital services and devices with significant cognitive enhancing effects attract less, if any, regulatory oversight than pharmacological interventions. This raises significant questions such as whether any form of self-regulation would be appropriate, and whether there are circumstances where enhancements should be encouraged or even mandatory, particularly where work involves responsibility for the safety of others, like bus drivers or airline pilots. Indeed, the details of the report, while most certainly reasonable, are also exceedingly obvious. In a way, it's as if the workshop participants are late to the show and only now trying to get the word out. And in fact, given the popularity and rampant misuse of stimulants such as Provigil and the tremendous interest in nootropics, these are nootropics. It's sometimes nootropics are kind of like a woo-woo thing, but they're called cognitive enhancers, kind of like if you ever saw Limitless, it's sort of like NZT. The report does seem long overdue. The panel's recommendations, such as further investigations into ensuring safety, affordability, and accessibility, are most certainly welcome, and their suggestion that some of these enhancement technologies, whether they be pharmaceutical, regenerative medicines, or cybernetics, should be regulated by the government is spot on. No. Given the potential for personal misuse, not to mention the potential exploitation by employers, would most certainly necessitate the need for regulatory oversight. I'll talk about that in a minute. And perhaps most encouragingly, rather than reacting hysterically and calling for an outright ban on enhancement technologies, the panelists have outlined a roadmap for getting these technologies integrated into our lives in a safe and effective way. How nice. And you can read the whole report for yourself. If you go to sovereigntech.com, it is in the show notes. And there's a link to this article on IO9, and at the bottom of the article of IO9, there's a link to the PDF that shows the whole report. Okay. First, I want to say this about hard work. All right. I am by, I guess maybe, for lack of a better phrase, I'm not saying this in a scientific sense, for lack of a better phrase, by nature, I am a very hard worker, exceptionally hard worker. And in me saying that, I am not saying that someone who isn't a hard worker is lazy. And I am not saying that in the idea that hard work is some kind of virtue, because it isn't. Hard work is an American value, okay? And it's an American value created alongside and to complement things like, overall conservatism. It's designed to complement austerity and, all these really like, all these things, all these cultural mores, societal mores that just are designed to hold you down and keep you from getting pleasure. Okay. This is a big mistake that society makes. All right. In that saying that, oh yeah, well, if you work hard, yes, it's true. If you work hard, you're 9 times out of 10, you're going to get somewhere. Okay. But that doesn't mean that hard work is somehow this grandiose thing. Okay. And there's the old saying, work smarter, not harder. Now there's people saying work harder and smarter and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm not saying there aren't times for that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working hard. I'm just saying the idea that it's somehow a moral virtue is bullshit. Okay. It's not true. People too much. Just picture this. How crazy is it that when you walk up to a person and you talk to them, and what's the first question that gets asked when you're introduced? Oh, what do you do? As if somehow that is your, meaning of life, that is what defines you. I've said this before on this show. I've known surfers who could go toe to toe with Neil deGrasse Tyson in a physics debate. Okay? You're going to call him, well, what do you do? I surf. You're going to think he's an idiot. No, the guy's a fucking genius. He knows more about physics. It's incredible. These people, because a lot of times these people that are considered like lackadaisical or lazy or whatever. Usually, sometimes these are people that are just reading all day long. They're geniuses, and you're going to define them by their job? Oh, please, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, we got that out of the way. Let's get into this whole notion. This is I consider this kind of scary. I like the idea of nootropics. Like I wish there was an NZT. I would love to take something like that increases my brain power. Please, that's phenomenal. I am intrigued by the idea of cybernetics. I am intrigued by the idea of human enhancement in general. I love it. I think it's wonderful, but it's not time. It's not time yet, and this proves why. Because who are the people that are going to be in control of these technologies? Corporations and government. No. Those are the last people you want to have this sort of thing. Okay? I'm not playing socialist here. Okay? I'm just saying, that to require workers, look, all right, if a business says you have to have this to work here, well, then you have to have that to work there. Yes, I'm okay with that. All right. But I am not okay with say corporations somehow this whole idea of mandatory, human upgrade is a scary concept. And I don't want government to regulate it. I don't want them in control of it. I don't want corporations in control of it. That's a problem too. Like, what if these cybernetics are, okay, well, this cybernet, I work at Samsung, and so they gave me this brain implant chip, and because I have a chip inside of me, that chip is actually the property of Samsung, not the property of me, so I have to use it my way, or, I can't use it my way. I have to use it in the interests of Samsung and all this stuff. Look, if human enhancement is just to, bolster corporations and governments, no. I wish no part of it at all. If somehow putting a product inside of me makes me the property of a corporation, no thanks. No interest in that whatsoever. I don't care how much better it makes me as a human. Okay? I don't want it. This is a scary direction to be taking human enhancement. Okay, I'm glad that they're wanting an open discussion, but of course it's ridiculous that Ionine's like, yeah, well, we got to have government oversight on this. Oh yeah, because the government wouldn't take advantage of, a processor in your brain. NSA? Did I even have to say that? No. So this is something, I talked about a little while back. I think it was episode 51. Got a lot of nice compliments about that episode. Thank you. where Google X, actually, I mentioned it earlier in this episode, where one of the heads of Google X said, we're working on something so much bigger than tablets and smartphones and watches and glass. We're working on these bigger things. And I said, in episode 51, I said, please hold off. Please don't release it yet, because the world is not ready. I'm almost to the point where I don't want, unless the technological innovation has privacy and individual control specifically in mind, and decentralization specifically in mind in its creation. Okay? As in, I'm saying, yes, it can't be controlled by a corporation. It can't be controlled by a government. Don't come out with it. Don't. Okay? Because they don't need any more power. All right? The fortunate thing is, and please wait for Hacker Stories, because we're going to talk about this very subject, okay? What can be done, things like that. The fortunate thing is that, I think we can come up with the technologies that can circumvent a lot of this stuff, including maybe what they're talking about here, okay? Because say you work for a corporation and they say, no, well, this, we're going to turn off, say they gave you like some kind of like a, muscular enhancement, and which allowed you to be, a human forklift, as insulting as that sounds. Maybe we could figure out a hack to where, because, say you left work, when you punch out, they would turn off that enhanced strength. To conserve power for some green something or whatever. Maybe we could figure out, because we are so damn smart, and humans are, okay? The ones, because the people that aren't involved in government are pretty intelligent, right? I think so. Because they figured out, no, I don't want to work for them. And the people that like don't want to sell their souls to, to corporations, I'd say they're pretty intelligent too, because they're like, no, I don't want to work for them. Maybe they could figure out how to hack, these proprietary human enhancements that looks like they're trying to develop for the future, so that, it can be used, for personal benefit, for self-interest. And, I'm really scared. If companies are going to start saying, hey, nope, I need you to take Adderall. Oh man, please, no, that is so scary. And this whole attitude really is kind of scary. The idea that they're doing all of this, they're doing a workshop, they're spending millions of dollars, billions of dollars to somehow make the human being a better worker bee. Yeah, no, that's not improving the human condition. It's not. It isn't. It's the antithesis of hedonism, which I firmly subscribe to, in that, the idea is to bring more pleasure, not bring a better, a better worker, because they're not talking about making a better work environment. They're just talking about making a better worker. Okay. If you want a better worker, you want to start with the environment, not with altering the human being. That's twisted. Okay. And I think with an article like this, you can see where some people, I have heroes, like I said before, I have heroes that are capitalists, but you can see where some people, when they hear the word capitalism, they may think shit like this, and I don't blame them. I'll be right back with more. This is Sovryn Tech.
Time now for 90 Seconds on Sex with Dr. Paul.
While there have been studies on how marijuana impacts sex, the results are often contradictory, and the way the studies were done wasn't always the best. Most of the studies show that moderate doses of marijuana can have a positive effect on men's and women's sexual desire and on how good they felt the sex was. However, it might not have a positive effect on how people's genitals function during sex. But they're usually too stoned to notice that their equipment might not be at its finest. Now, this would be especially true if the pot is helping the person who's smoking to feel more relaxed and more tuned in to his or her body's physical sensations. Most of the current research shows that moderate cannabis consumption can help a woman to feel an increase in sexual desire and sexual satisfaction. However, smoking pot can also have negative effects for women, so sex is not always better for a woman who's stoned. Our research on male rats is showing that marijuana can negatively impact rodent erections and testosterone levels. However, this negative effect doesn't appear to be nearly as pronounced in human males, unless they partake of the ganja more often than most. After reading the research, I honestly can't say whether smoking pot would or wouldn't increase an adult's experience of sex. I do know it can be illegal to try.
For more, visit 90secondsonsex.com.
Software of the Week.
It is time for Software of the Week, where I cover software that may be really bad. Last week I did a bad one with Beats Music. Nothing special going on there. Not that makes something inherently bad, but it certainly doesn't make it worth getting, considering how many wonderful choices we have in the world of music. And then sometimes it's something good. And this week I'm going to do something maybe a little bit different. I'm talking about software, technically, in that you have to download a client. But I'm going to talk about a new cryptocurrency, a new altcoin that's coming out. And I'm really excited about this, and I am going to start accepting this. It may be in the show notes for this week's episode. If not, it will definitely be in next week's show notes. And it's called NextCoin, or Next, NXT. It's got a few different names. But I like NXT or Next. I mean, all those names work really, really well for me. And this is interesting. Now, I'm concerned. I tell people to look into things like I definitely recommended and still do recommend looking into PROTOSHARES. I've talked about Ethereum and ZeroCoin. Ethereum is definitely one to watch. And ZeroCoin's a case where I think it's a very, very interesting technology, but keep in mind that the team behind ZeroCoin is not liberty-minded by any stretch of the imagination. That doesn't mean that they're going to make a bad product. That just means, it might be something you want to keep in mind if you're interested in cryptocurrencies from a philosophical standpoint. And NXT, or Next, I'll call it Next for right now, is... it's one that was actually, it's not really a clone, because as far as I understand it, it was written from the ground up. Okay. And they have a client already. It's only been out for maybe 2-3 weeks. We're in the first week of February right now. And they have the client for for Linux, for Mac, and for Windows, which is great because a lot of these guys out of the gate, they won't come out with a Linux client. And so I'm very, very pleased that out of the gate, they're already coming out with all three things. It's 100% proof of stake. Okay. Which, I don't know if it's the first one to do that, to be 100% proof of stake. But it's not proof of work, as to where, proof of work is like Bitcoin, where you have to do mining, and proof of stake, essentially gets, does the mining through transacting anyway. But as far as I know, it's a totally new code. Like it's not based on Bitcoin at all, as to where pretty much every other altcoin kind of is. So that's really, that in and of itself is exciting. So that's what I wanted to say, was that I talk about a lot of different altcoins, but there's really only maybe 4 or 5 that actually, really get my ship sailing. And this would be one of them, because it is different. And that's what I look for. Are they really offering something that much different? Like Frycoin was actually interesting. In my opinion, it's going to fail, but it's an interesting concept because it actually worked on a different philosophy other than capital gain. So that was an interesting one. But Frycoin can't actually really be worth anything because of demurrage. But anyway. There's a messaging system built into Next, which is pretty exciting. There's an alias system, which, that may allow for some interesting future developments. There's a whole lot going on here. And of course it's green, which is one of the things that, now this is an easy, okay. A lot of people don't like Bitcoin because they feel that it's not green, because it takes all these, really high-powered miners to run it and all this stuff. Now, of course, the easy answer to that is, it's like, well, how much does it, how many trees does it kill? Or not trees, because the money's cotton. But I mean, how bad for the environment is paper money? It's terrible. doesn't even compare to what it takes to run the Bitcoin network. So that's an easy thing to debunk. But, NXT Next, they essentially, answer that, in that it's completely green because it can run off of anything. It just runs in the internet. So, that's an interesting concept behind it if you're interested in that, or maybe it's a good way to sell a cryptocurrency to someone. So I'm pretty impressed by this. It's something that can be had pretty cheap right now, and I have an old rule that if you can throw $100 at anything, and if and it's worth it. Lose the $100 and toss it at it and take a risk. And this is one of those ones I think it's a risk. NXTcrypto.org. Go to that website and check it out. I'll be back with more Sovryn Tech.
From Big Finish Productions, Blake 7, The Classic Audio Adventures.
I'm taking Liberator in on manual. We'll be in teleport range in 2 minutes.
What the hell was that?
Information. Liberator has been attacked.
You don't say.
Put up the force wall.
Confirmed.
Message to all ground commanders. Initiate the final phase. Let's crush these rebels once and for all.
My name is Avon. Kerr Avon.
Kerr Avon.
Our hostage arrives. But you may be unnecessary.
As a hostage, it's nice to be superfluous.
You can go to Blake7.com to find more of the new adventures of one of science fiction's greatest masterpieces, Blake 7, at Blake7.com. It is time for listener emails, where you can get in touch with me, SovrynTech at riseup.net, on Twitter at SovrynTech, even at SovrynTech.com. If you have a SoundCloud account, you can message me directly from there. Plenty of ways. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you can message me there too. Whatever. I can't get to all the PMs, and I can't really give you, especially with Facebook, I can't private message you and give you the time that you really deserve. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's the time you deserve for me to talk to you. I've met so many great people through this show, and I have so many friends in general, that I want to spend time with, and I feel so bad because I just can't. It'd be a dishonor, in my opinion. It'd be a disservice to you, if I tried to, communicate with you with so much going on. So anyway, but all those options are available to get in touch with me, to ask me, and you can ask me anything with listener email, and I'm going to kind of prove it here because I bound up a lot of questions that people have asking me, about me. And so I figured I'd get into them. But before I do, I also want to mention that Sovryn Tech does have an Instagram account, and Instagram has really become, it's a fact, okay? Instagram has become the king of social networking, because really where the young people go is where the money goes. With companies. And so Instagram is where all the young people have gone, or, younger, whatever the demographic you want to call it. So I do have Instagram. I love Instagram. Lots of people using it. The Star Wars Instagram page is amazing. I mean, they're showing very, very classic stuff. There's a whole Oppo Mobile. There's a whole bunch of great accounts on there that I actually enjoy looking at. But I'm there too. I post stuff. I try to post something at least daily, sometimes multiple times a day on Instagram. But do check out for that. Like I said, I did have Ask.fm, but it's just, I don't think it's really catching on. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to hold on to that, because I mean, that's the thing, like that I've been doing since the beginning, since I started the show, was just, pruning what works, what doesn't work. And just getting rid of what doesn't work, just pruning it, because you get digiphrenia, when you're a different person on all these accounts, and you can get digiphrenia, and I have no interest in that. So anyway, let's get to the first question. I was going to do Cicada 3301, but I think I'm going to do that for a main story. in the future because there's some interesting developments going on with that. So I have been asked about Cicada 3301, and I will be touching on that. Don't worry. It's a pretty evergreen topic and story. Evergreen meaning that, it can be talked about anytime. But just letting you know that when you send me, questions for listener emails or Tech Roulette, I do get to them. Anyway, so here's the first one. And it's, let's see, how big is, well, all right, I'm not going to answer that. Why are you called the golden stallion of the tech world, or Stallion? The answer to this, quite simply, is the better question is, why do I use that? Not where did it come from, but why do I use it? And frankly, the answer is very simple. It just sounds ridiculous. Like, it's just, it has this kind of, it sort of has a kind of an opulent, which I enjoy, and kind of maybe even one could say maybe an arrogant flair to it. And I actually just gave away the origin, flair. So it's just meant to sound stupid, or not stupid, because I love the name. Like I enjoy, there's lots of people now who will email me and they say, "Hey, Stallion," or I see him at, I'll see him at conventions or at conferences, and they'll be like, "Hey, Stallion," and I love it. I think that's great. That works for me in a million ways, believe me. But anyway, it actually, the term golden stallion comes from what's known as a wrestling stable, which means that it's a group of wrestlers that got put together, and it comes from the Four Horsemen from the NWA, or which would later become WCW. Little known fact, I used to be a huge wrestling fan. Of course, I lived in New York. Who the hell wasn't in New York? No, really, believe me, people in New York are wrestling fans. It's part of the game. Okay. I'm not saying that it's a good thing per se. I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. But I used to be just a huge wrestling fan. Actually, wrestling, admittedly, in many ways, changed my life for the better. And so there was a group a long time in the 80s and late 80s which if you're a capitalist, you'd love them. And they were called the Four Horsemen. And it was Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and then the fourth horseman was always somebody else, and then their manager was James J. Dillon. And their symbol was the horse head, a golden horse head. And so Ric Flair would often, or at least once, I know, in a promo being where they talk a little smack with an interviewer, in the promo would call himself, or he said the Golden Stallion. And I heard that and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, that's so cool. And so I just added of the tech world. And you know what I mean? He was the Golden Stallion of the wrestling world, so I added Golden Stallion of the tech world. There it is. It's ridiculous. It's just meant to be absolutely crazy. There is no psychoanalysis to be had at all in why I call myself Golden Stallion of the tech world. It's just meant to be outrageous. Really. So simple question there. You got that. Anyway, and yes, you are totally allowed to call me Stallion. That's fine. Or Golden Stallion, whatever tickles your fancy. Now the next one is, what's with the triple black? Triple black. I've worn black I've worn all black since I was about 17. The reasons I started doing that are, there's quite a few. A lot of people, I think, and maybe I've talked about this on the show before, I don't know if I have, but a lot of people think that I have some kind of, that somehow, when I tell them that I've been doing it for a long time, and you can look at older pictures of me, and yeah, I've been doing it for a while. Though there was a period where I didn't, but it's been more that I have than I haven't. And a lot of people, think that there must have been some terrible tragedy in my life, that some friend died or something. And I promised to always wear black in remembrance of him. Kind of like when people wear a black armband, when a beer distillery burns down or something. It's nothing like that at all. It's all the reasons back then when I started doing it are incredibly dorky. They have to do with me wanting to be a ninja. They have to do with me wanting to be Batman, which those are kind of intertwined because Batman's a ninja. They have to do with, there was a group in Wing Commander 4 called the Black Lance Squadron, and they wore all black, and I thought they were pretty badass at the time. Again, we're talking about a 17-year-old here, okay? The king of the nerds. I did dorky things on purpose. And so, there's a bunch of other reasons. It seemed like there was like the Psi Corps in Babylon 5, they wore all black. And so there was just a lot of people. I noticed that a lot of things I dug in various shows or whatever, these people wore all black all the time. So I kind of started doing it. Then what happened is that, 10 years later, 2007, 2008, around there, I became an anarchist. And, it just fit, because that's what anarchists do, is they wear black. They wear all black. In fact, there was sadly, I can't remember her name, but there was, I think it was in Seattle, there was those 3 anarchists who got arrested. One of them was a conventionally attractive woman who got a lot of press because of it. I unfortunately, I can't remember her name. But anyway, what's that? Leah. Sorry, the producer of the show, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, fortunately came forward with that. But like when they got arrested, in the report, it said that the cops took all their black clothes, because that's such a recognized symbol of anarchy. And so I'm really shocked. Actually, fortunately, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy sitting across from me is wearing all black. So I'm pleased by that. I'm wearing all black, albeit not much. I'm shocked that more anarchists don't do this. Sam Konkin, Sec 3, the guy who came up with agorism that everybody so fucking loves, he wore all black. Maybe, of course, you think if everybody wears all black, it looks like a cult. Okay, fine. I guess I could accept that. But it's perfectly fine. I'm not saying you have to wear all black. I'm just saying it's cool. It makes a statement. And I'm just surprised that more people didn't catch on and do it. I don't know. Maybe they feel that it relates them to towards the more violent anarchists, but that obviously wouldn't be Sec 3. He wouldn't be a violent anarchist by any stretch, I don't believe. Yeah, that's it. That's for the triple black. And so a guy one day said, it's like, man, every time I see you, this is after I moved to New Hampshire, a guy says, every time I see you, you're always wearing triple black, man. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's what I'll call it. That's since nobody else is doing it. And really, I don't know. I think there might have been one other guy I've seen in New Hampshire that intentionally wears black all the time. And his name's Bile. But other than that, I don't know anyone else that does it. So I just, I just kind of took it and ran with it, made it my own little marketing, said, yeah, I'm the guy that wears triple black. And just like people yell out, hey, Stallion, I got people that say, hey, triple black, and that's great. Good. Awesome. So that's that. That's the whole point. There is no grand psychoanalytical reason for me wearing black. There's nobody died in my past. I'm not emo. I've never been emo. I have always been a very happy person. I don't listen to emo bands. I listen to 80s metal, and pop. I don't, and I'm 31, 32 years old. Anyway, so yeah, it had nothing to do with emo. I never wore makeup either, but it's okay if you do. No judgment there, really. Anyway, what is my middle name? Well, the first part, let's see, I'll get to the other questions here first, actually. Is Sovryn your real last name? No. That name was kindly thought up of and given to me by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. And so what's that? I baptized you. Yeah, she baptized me. All right. It was a gusher. Anyway, it was just, and the Sovryn was just to separate it. There's some people who have used the word sovereign in their name in New Hampshire, and I don't know, I wouldn't want to have any kind of relation with them because, anyway, so, we just came up with a clever thing and it worked. It sounded great. Brian Sovryn. I loved it. Okay, so no, it's not my birth last name, but it is what I use when I get a package from Amazon. It says Brian Sovryn on it. It's my name. It's on my business cards that I hand out, it says Brian Sovryn. So that it is my, in that case, it is my real last name, but it's not my legal last name. My actual last name is Markowski, a very unfortunate Jewish Polish name. And I can go further back because, like, in Jewish families, like there's importance to kind of your historical names. Like on my family side, it's actually Rothdiener, because Markowski was a name given by the King of Poland in the 16th, 17th century to diplomats, scholars, and teachers. And so it wasn't like it's not a name that's been around. My actual name. If you wanted to look into his historical last names, mine would be, on my mother's side, it would be Kagan, and on my father's side, it would actually be Rothdiener. So, anyway, there you go. There's a little bit of history about me with my last names. And anyway, so what is my middle name? Of course, my actual middle name is something else, but I did kind of choose a middle name, and that happened to be Bacchus. Which I think anybody who knows the history of Bacchus, if you don't, please go to Wikipedia and check it out. I think you would find it to be very, very fitting. I also enjoy the fact that turned my initials into BBS, like bulletin board system, which I love BBSs, and I think they're something that are actually going to come into prominence once again, or at least maybe not in the exact form they existed in the past, but in a new fashion. I think BBSs are going to really conquer the net once again. So anyway, great questions. Again, none of it has any deep meaning. I think there's a lot of people that keep wanting for there to be deep meanings on things, and people can say, oh, well, in a Freudian sense, there's everything has some kind of meaning or whatever. But I think Freud, while Freud did contribute some interesting things, it's important that to quote him, he did make one really great quote, which is, "My boy, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar." And I think in the Liberty Movement that gets forgotten. Okay, that sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Okay, sometimes a cheesecake is just a cheesecake. There doesn't have to really. If anyone makes the claim that there has to be some kind of deep-seated reason behind every single goddamn thing, I think a person is, I don't know. Maybe it's worth exploring. If it's something that makes you happy to explore stuff to such depths, okay, well, then that makes you happy. But I don't know. Yeah, and I think I've heard some people make comments, because I wanted to be a ninja. In fact, a lot of that hasn't actually changed. I think ninjas are pretty wild. A lot of people want to psychoanalyze that. It's people can do things just to be cool. I mean, just because of their concept of what being cool is. There really doesn't have to. There's things that are never cool, like lethal force, right, is never cool. Okay. So if someone's propagating wanting to, I wish I was, I wish I was a mass murderer like Dexter or something. Maybe that might be, up to okay, you might want to psychoanalyze that, but there's a lot of things where I just think that, just leave it be, let the person enjoy what they're enjoying. Come on. But I wonder about that. I've actually, if you're a fan of Dexter, okay, here, I'm going to turn the tables. Now, this is listener email in reverse. I want to hear from you. If you're a fan of Dexter, tell me why you're a fan of Dexter. Or maybe tell me why you're a fan of Breaking Bad. Because one show's about a guy that runs a meth lab. The other show's about a guy that is a mass murderer, but he does it for good. Let me know what you think on that. I'll be back with more.
The Electronic Frontier Foundation, or EFF, fights to protect your rights in the digital world. When a patent troll threatened podcasters, they fought back. EFF has also defended your right to encryption and has sued the NSA to end the government's mass, suspicionless surveillance. There are different ways you can help EFF, from donations to signing petitions to writing your representatives to just spreading the word. Find out more at EFF.org. That's EFF.org.
Brian! Stop playing those video games!
Just a minute, Mom.
Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk, where we get to talk video games, and how can you go wrong with that? You can't. So, and in fact, it's amazing how many times video games seemed, especially today, seem to really interact with real life. And make real commentary on real life. So that, I don't mind talking about games and just talking about games. Let's talk about it. I mean, if we want to talk about the, just the good times with Mario or whatever, that's all fine and dandy. But a lot of times it's really interesting. There was a few episodes back when I had Stephanie on, where we talked about this guy getting married, and he sold all his video game collection because he had to sacrifice for the marriage. And next week I think I'm going to have Stephanie on next week, and maybe we'll get another really great game story, because again it's fascinating how this stuff comes up. So I'm really glad there was a point quite a few months ago where I said, I'm not really feeling Game Talk. It's not really, sticking with it. But then a lot of people said, oh, thank you so much for keeping, for having it and keeping it in. So it stays. And again, it's interesting how often I find stories get sent to me, where that's about video games, and how it applies really to, it genuinely applies to people, to freedom. It applies to, what you do in your life. It's really fascinating. This week is not one of those weeks, though. So, but before I get into the Game Talk of the week, for the week, oIaCQn, which is one of the very first things I talked about on Sovryn Tech. In fact, it was the main topic of a hidden episode of Sovryn Tech, episode 0, that I don't think I'll ever release. But anyway, the oIaCQn, which is a semi-popular, it was a very popular Kickstarter, but it's a semi-popular Android console that I enjoy it. I think it's awesome. They are coming out with an update for it, where it's going to have 16 gig of memory instead of the 8 gig of hard drive space, and the controller is supposed to be better, and the thing is going to be all black. So who knows? With a price tag of $129, I think that's a mistake. They should have sold it for $99, and then I think they would have had a really good seller on their hands. But for the price of $129, I think it's a worthy device. But of course, you've got Amazon coming out with an Android-based console that we talked about earlier in the show. So you might want to keep your eyes open, for that, and just hold off. But if you are interested in oIaCQn, get the newer version. I definitely think the 16 gigs of space could really come into use, because of the open model of the oIaCQn, the sky's the limit, really, with what you can do with it. So the more onboard stuff, the better, in that case. So hold out for that, or if you want, get the Amazon console when that comes out, or even still, Google. Like I said, there's been rumors for a while that Google was going to come out with a game console. And they could do it, and I think they could be successful. I mean, you look at Microsoft, no one thought the Xbox, not the 360 or the One, but the original Xbox, nobody thought that was going to be a big deal. But just Microsoft kept throwing money at it, and they learned their lessons with it, came out with the 360, and the 360, ended up becoming one of the most popular video game systems of all time. So, take that for what it's worth. So Google can just keep throwing money at something until you're pretty much you just can't avoid it anymore. Anyway, speaking of Google, this week's story is from Kotaku, and it's Google sure asks great video game questions. Google can be a treasure trove of information, both international and accidental, but nothing is weirder and more revealing about the world than the crowdsourced questions that Google autocompletes in your search bar. Here are just a few of the most popular questions about video game characters according to Google. So this is autocomplete. It's kind of like when you type in, the Google search bar, and you type in the letter A, and it comes up with Asian ass porn, right? Because And this is why everybody has their own computer now, because they don't want their significant other seeing when they start typing in A. You know, that's an old joke from a comedian about the Asian ass porn thing. I didn't come up with that. Anyway, so this is autocomplete, what they come up with, and I'm going to read some of these off, and these are actually pretty funny. The first one is for Metroid, okay, which the main character in Metroid, of course, is the female Samus Aran, which it was, you know, for the late 1980s, for there to be a main lead character that, quote unquote, kicked a lot of ass, to be female, it was shocking. In fact, you didn't know until you beat the game. It was really an amazing twist, and still considered one of a really, really powerful kind of a feminist statement. Positive one, you know, because it didn't require a law. Okay, it just said, hey, no, women can do this, which was awesome. So anyway, some of the questions for Metroid is, why is Samus, and then it finishes, why is Samus a girl? Okay. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's great. Why is Samus afraid of Ridley? Ridley's one of the enemies in the game. Why is Samus so hot? Well, there. Yeah, boy, and I tell you, you go into Google Image, if you go to Google Images now and you type in Samus Aran, yeah, you're going to end up with a lot of cosplay and a lot of artistry, and they go all out, because there's what's called, now, I mean, Samus Aran generally wears like this huge suit of armor, which is why you don't know it's a woman until she takes it off. And when she takes it off, she has like kind of this blue lycra suit on. Of course, in the original Metroid game, when she takes it off, she had like a purple kind of bikini, not bikini, but that's just the best way I can describe it. But now she has what's called a Zero suit, which is her suit without the armor, and it's just this blue skin tight business, you know, very sexy. So let's see what else. They pretty much seem to be all that, but then there was, why is Samus low tier? Why is Samus bottom tier? Meaning, like, why isn't she considered such a big deal in the, I'm guessing it means, why is she not such a big deal in the Nintendo lexicon, where like Mario and Zelda are huge and yet nobody really talks about, you know, Samus Aran? Well, it's because there aren't a lot of Metroid games. They don't come out all the time like Mario games do, or even like Zelda games do. They're even more rare than Zelda games, which is really a statement. But I think they're always great. Even Other M was a great you know, Metroid game. And of course, another autocomplete is why Samus is awesome, which that's cool. I agree. I think Samus Aran was awesome. She's definitely my favorite video game character by a long shot. But my second favorite video game character is, oddly enough, the second person on this list. And I know this is going to sound like a contradiction, and this is something where I do need to do some psychoanalysis, I think, is Duke Nukem. And this one, actually, this got me, I was so annoyed by this. Why is Duke Nukem Forever so bad? Oh, God. Okay, Duke Nukem Forever was the latest Duke Nukem game to come out. It's a notorious game because it took 15 years to come out, literally. Like, I remember being a 15-year-old kid reading, it might have been EGM or one of those magazines, maybe it's PC Gamer, where they were talking about Duke Nukem Forever in 1996. Yeah. And it finally came out in 2010. Okay, the game wasn't bad. The game's awesome. It's Duke. Okay, it's Duke Nukem. It can't be bad. So that's kind of annoying that it says that. Why is Duke Nukem Forever so bad? Now, in all honesty, the complaints about Duke Nukem Forever usually come from the console versions, which in that case, you know, they say like there's really long load times. Well, I think this is dodging the issue here, as I always say, because it's not that Duke Nukem Forever is bad. It's because you're using a console. Ooh. Anyway, what's the next one? Why is Duke Nukem Forever rated M? Well, that's because, like, actually in the beginning of the game, Duke Nukem is getting a blowjob from twins. So that's why Duke Nukem Forever is rated M. Anyway, why is Duke Nukem Forever bad? And then why is Duke Nukem Forever? Well, because he's a pretty memorable character, especially coming out of the 90s when, you know, things were so extreme. He really epitomized that extreme. And it was kind of a slap to the face to the conservatism that seemed to be rising in the 90s. So that's why Duke Nukem is forever. Let's see, who's next in these autocompletes from Google? Donkey Kong. Why is Donkey Kong not a donkey? That's a great question. And of course, the next logical question is, why is Donkey Kong named Donkey Kong? Yeah, I don't know, but those are great questions. What's the next one? Why is Donkey Kong in Mario Kart? Well, of course, Mario's first appearance was actually in Donkey Kong in 1981 in the Nintendo arcade game. So it makes sense that Donkey Kong's in Mario Kart. Why is Donkey Kong a monkey? Well, he's actually an ape, and I think, maybe there was like a mistranslation because you have monkey, which kind of sounds like donkey, and maybe they wanted to call him Monkey Kong or something. I don't know. And of course, King Kong being a legendary giant ape, certainly more legendary than even Donkey Kong. The next one is Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII, and it's, why is Cloud Strife depressed? That's perfect. Because, yeah, why is he so depressed? In fact, it's funny, like Final Fantasy, I love the Final Fantasy games, especially Final Fantasy VIII, personal favorite. Final Fantasy IX is actually my favorite of all time, but a lot of the Final Fantasy games, boy, they take themselves so damn seriously. They're so depressing, and like everybody loves them, and I don't know if it's like that maybe that teenage emo crowd, loved it in the late 90s or what. But yeah, I mean, this is really depressing stuff. Like, he lives in I know why he's depressed. You can say because Eris died and whatever, but why he didn't get with Tifa, I have no idea. But yeah, maybe he had a complex because he wasn't as cool as Vincent, right? Because, that was my favorite character in Final Fantasy VII. I don't know about you. So anyway, let's see what else is. Why is Cloud Strife so popular? Yeah, it's Final Fantasy VII. It's just like it was that generation's Mario. Why is Cloud Strife so hot? Ooh, who knew? I didn't think anybody thought that. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. We got Sonic the Hedgehog, one of my all-time faves. Did Sonic the Hedgehog die? No. Did Sonic the Hedgehog have a girlfriend? Yes. In fact, in Sonic Unleashed, he had a human girlfriend. Who knew Sega pushed bestiality? Tell you, games pushing things forward. No. I'll be back with more.
Tonight, Knight Rider crashes into your living room.
I don't believe this.
Well, you'd better believe it. A lone crusader for justice drives this crime crasher.
The world's most fantastic car.
And together they can do just about anything.
After all, we're only human.
Don't press your luck.
And now, buckle up for action with the fastest show on television, Knight Rider.
See Knight Rider online today. And now back to Sovryn Tech.
Wow! It's a website of the week.
It is time for Website of the Week, where I talk about websites that are, that I consider useful, sometimes terrible, maybe even funny, or maybe deadly serious. But this one falls under useful. And I really, really like this website because it's covering a subject that, for most of the Western world anyway, is very important. And that is time. And it's timeanddate.com. And it's literally that time, the word time, the word and, not the symbol, the word and the word date.com, timeanddate.com. And this is really cool. It has, there's so much to do here. It gives you a great world clock, of course. It talks about time zones, gives you a calendar, and you can create an account on there so that you can save all this stuff. And you can you could set it at your homepage if you want. There's apps that do this sort of thing where they give you a lot of information like weather and all this stuff, like right on your new tab screen, say for Chrome. Kind of like one of the really great ones that I might do for Software of the Week in the future is Momentum. I love that. It's a Chrome app. But anyway, this is really cool. And you can get time information and time zones just about anywhere. And it's all in one nice, really beautiful package. It gives you, sunset, sunrise stuff. Calculators, you can even figure out how to, and this could be interesting if you are, if you're interested, like I mentioned, if you're using Tor, you want to be someone else. If you want to, there's even calculators on here for all kinds of things, like a kind of like a fake birthday calculator, to where you can figure out like how old you are based upon, what like fake birthday you said. I mean, of course, yeah, you can do all this stuff in your head, but you could have this set up as a reminder. Distance calculators, business dates. I mean, just all kinds of wild stuff. And they have apps. They have apps too, that they offer for Windows 8, iPad, Android. They got all kinds of good stuff. They also have APIs that you can put on your website that are based on it. It's just a really, really, in my opinion, really well done website that offers a lot of stuff. You can make calendars on there and print them out as PDFs, or print out the PDF versions of them. Time zone converters, all the stuff, which as a business person that can be a really big deal. I don't know. I again, it's just something I find really, really handy. You can set up, or you can even look up what's the UTC World Time, whatever. All these things, and there's a lot of like information on there. It kind of acts like a Wikipedia of time, essentially. Even though I guess you could look up time on Wikipedia and learn a lot about it, but it's a lot of fun, and it's just a really, really well done website. You can customize it the way you want. Like I say, you can log in and you can have all this stuff set up, and it might be just a really handy thing to have. I actually like it for my Chromebook. It's a super handy website to go to all the time. Because sometimes like I do, or at least I'm starting to do business with people like in Russia, and in other parts of the world, and so it's good to keep track of, okay, what time is it where I'm emailing this person, and this just makes it very, very simple, and you can set all these things up. There's other websites that do this sort of thing that that follow the atomic clocks and all that, but this is the one that I thought just actually had a lot to offer. More than just like, oh, I'll go there and there's a clock. You know what I mean? So and I think you'll like it too. And there's even like some degree of like games on there or whatever. Just all kinds of stuff that you can do. I enjoy it. So timeanddate.com, just a simple, handy website, nothing that serious, but it's one of those things that until you check it out, you realize, oh yeah, this is actually really useful, and you just didn't know it was there. So anyway, check it out, timeanddate.com. I'll be back with more.
Oh yeah! This is Stephanie Murphy, Sovereign Tech Producer. You may know me from this show, but did you know that I have my own podcast? It's called Pork Therapy. Pork Therapy is a bit different from other shows. We cover current events, big ideas, and even relationship issues, all through the lens of how we can get more freedom in our lives. Oh, and you'll love Sex and Science Hour. Join me on my website, porktherapy.com. That's porctherapy.com. Now back to Sovereign Tech. Hacker Stories.
It is time for Hacker Stories, where I talk about security issues, or I talk about the real heroes of the world, hackers, be they black hat, white hat, gray hat. I think they're all heroes. If they're doing something malicious, I use a different word. I call them crackers. I do not. I understand what else that word can mean, but it's an important point to bring up real quick. And actually, I'm going to quote an author who's really eons ahead of his time, always was, and that being Philip K. Dick, and who actually, well, anyway, his comment was, the basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use the words. And that is so true for so many things. Semantics are important. It's important that we get these things worked out. And that's why I talked about it last week. I read a very unfortunate suicide letter from Commander X, which I still don't know. If I find out that he is actually, again, it's kind of up in the air whether or not he's actually dead due to the nature of his identity. And, if I find out that it's absolutely true, I will certainly keep you updated on that. But, it's the word hacker by pretty much everybody's standards is like a pejorative, and I want that changed now. Okay. And that's why I read that letter, because these people, just in the very language, are getting discriminated, insulted, and assaulted and attacked, verbally, if not other ways. So very, very important on that. And someone actually, a friend of the show, and a friend, again, who in real life, he felt inspired after hearing some of these things, especially a lot of the topics that we talk about, that it can be very, very depressing with what's going on with the NSA, or like with Commander X, and like Aaron Swartz taking his own life, Commander X taking his own, possibly taking his own life. And he wrote this up and he shared it with me, and it was just one of the most beautiful things I've read in so long. And I said, please, his name's Rob McNair. I said, please let me share this. And he said, I hoped you would. And so I'm going to share it. I'm going to read it right here. And we'll talk about it after. Maybe it's just the music blaring from the headphones and the sounds of revolution. No, evolutionary beats echoing through my head. Maybe this feeling will be fleeting, but it's here now and I embrace it fully. If you read the news, it's easy to start feeling pretty low these days. It seems one 3-letter agency or another has the freedom fighters on the run. Those of us who fight the good fight certainly seem a little less forthcoming around our activities, and who can blame us? Even if we don't see it, the presence of that all-seeing eye is a constant pressure on our lives. But right here, right now, this is what I know. We are faster than them. It may seem like we're the ones on the run, but it's their system, their rules that are constantly trying to keep up with us. Their failures outnumber our own. Even when the gatekeepers do take root, we don't stop until we've found a way to circumvent them. The all-seeing aspects of that eye is illusory. The gaze of Sovryn can only focus its attention on one place at a time. We outnumber them vastly. Their seeming omnipresence is another illusion meant to keep us chained. Too many of my brothers and sisters persist in a state of feeling isolation and loneliness. Some have even gone so far in their despair as to take their own lives. Worse yet, our sense of isolation only deepens the degree to which we push others away. I myself have struggled with this. If the deaths of our fallen should serve any good at all, it should be to remind us that we are not alone. When we at last realize that we outnumber them 100 to 1, their way of life, living off the brilliance of others, will start to come to an end. We are smarter than them. So smart, in fact, that they simply don't know what to do with us most of the time. We are the creators, the innovators, the producers. Any technological superiority they have has only come about as a result of us outsmarting them, and they're trying to compensate for it. We are the evolutionary and disruptive element to their reactionary and archaic dead end. We've been down that road and know where it ends, and it's not where we want to be. We are simply better than them in every respect. We're dealing with an inferior opponent. It's about damn time we started acting like it. Our collective merits, ingenuity, and tenacity is far greater than any force they can bring to bear. Life is equal measures of fragility and persistence, and liberty is the cockroach of ideals. It just won't fucking die. I still have hope. You remember that? The real thing. Not some empty platitude parroted by a soulless parasite feeding off our light. There really isn't any good reason not to hope. And if you hear someone crying out from a deep, dark hole, you had better bring your damn flashlight. E passe das lex ut veritas floriant, motherfuckers. Liberty lives. And that is so beautiful. I'll put it in the show notes at the end, at the bottom of the show notes, so you can read that and you can share it. You can copy paste it. Rob, I don't think you don't have to put it as his quote. It doesn't matter, because he doesn't mind, I'm sure, because this is a statement. This is a state of mind that I think we all can adopt. And that, that this is the thoughts, not just of Rob. This is the thoughts, I think, of all of us. And if it isn't, let's take hold of it. Because, it's so easy to get depressed. I mean, when you think about You think about Aaron Swartz, Commander X, who knows who else? There's others who have died, taken their own lives or maybe died by other means because, the world just keeps hammering you down and just doesn't let you be you and doesn't let you interact voluntarily with people. It's so easy to get so depressed. And this is it's such a great point. I mean, like these ideas, the ideas of anarchy, they've been around forever. They really have. It wasn't until the 1800s when someone finally called themselves an anarchist. But these ideas they're new, but they're not new. They've been around for a long, long time, and just have been, quashed here and there. But they like Rob said, they don't die. They're the cockroaches of ideals. I love that. And it's true, we are smarter than them. We're so much smarter than them. I get emails from people to this show. We get phone calls when I'm on Free Talk Live from people who just come up with the most brilliant things. And they're doing them. They're really doing them. I talk about this one in particular because I think this is just an incredibly exciting idea. I'm a huge fan of data packet radio, and there's a guy who's called in, and he's emailed around too. This is just this brilliant guy. He knows who he is. He did a Bitcoin transaction over radio waves. That's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. That's taken the economy. And that's because it's like people get so scared. Well, don't use Bitcoin because the government owns the internet. Fuck, they do. So what? Even if they did, yeah, they have a kill switch. Okay, I like that. That's true. Standard operations 303. Okay, but so what? They don't have the kill switch for radio. And we'll just take it there. And it's funny because really, Michael W. Dean. From Freedom Fiends, he says this, and he says all you can do now with the state, he's like, you laugh at them, and I say the same thing now too. You laugh at them because they're just so pathetic. They really are. I mean, just by their very nature, the fact that they have to get you to do something by the force of a gun is so pathetic. How much weaker can you get? Then you have to hide behind a gun. And so just laugh at them, and I feel bad because I've so often on this show, I have come out and said, things, I guess you could say I've been very much gloom and doom, and there's no reason to be. There really isn't. And Rob's bringing it up so beautiful in this. You can rewind the podcast and you can listen to that again because it is nothing less than stunning, to hear. But there's no reason we don't have to be afraid anymore. And there's real heroes, not old people either. There's not, there's nothing wrong with being old, and there's nothing wrong with being an old hero. All that's okay. All right. But there's people coming up, because that's the other thing that people get. It's like, oh, well, this generation is just so damn stupid. But no, they're not. I know young guys. I know a 16-year-old that's so far ahead of the game, as far as philosophy and things like that. It's amazing. It's amazing. These people are just coming out of the woodwork. Young people, women, whoever, whatever. They're coming from everywhere, and they're just bringing these incredible ideas, and they're not afraid. And they're, for lack of a better word, they're converting people into anarchy, into Bitcoin, into all these ideas, and it is amazing to see, and it's happening. We actually are winning. And it doesn't matter if they're tapping into everything we do. It's still a good idea to give them a hard time by using encryption and all that stuff. Encryption's a good thing to, all this stuff is great. Okay. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying we don't have to be depressed. And I think I have in small ways contributed, maybe large, I don't know, contributed to that culture of maybe like technological fear. We can stop that now. Okay. Because we're the ones that are actually, it's the oldest statement, right? We're the ones that are actually in control. The government's a dinosaur, and it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And I mean, you look, I mean, they're just jumping from one foot to the next. It's so pathetic. Anyway, Rob, thank you so much for writing that. It is absolutely inspirational. Like I said, it will be in the show notes at the very bottom of the show notes if anyone wants to read it and share it around. Get such a beautiful message out to everybody you know.
What does freedom mean? Tune in to LRN.FM to find out. LRN.FM is the Liberty Radio Network, a collection of live talk radio and podcasts, all coming from a principled pro-liberty perspective. LRN.FM show hosts aren't left, right, or conspiracy kooks. You can tune in 24/7 to LRN.FM via your phone, computer, satellite, and more. Listen free anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Would you like to play a game? Game of the Week.
It is time for Game of the Week, where I talk about a game that, maybe an older game that needs a good reinstall, or something that just kind of, maybe went under the radar because, you have so many AAA games that come out these days. And that really annoys. I mean, there's no possible way every AAA game, every game, that is quote unquote must play, it's impossible to play them all. You can't. There's no way. I remember, in fact, I think it was 2011 maybe, or 2000. Yeah, it was 2011, where there was just every month there was just tons of great games coming out. I mean, it was insane. And some of them turned out to not be so great, which I guess that's why you need a rating system, right? But I don't always trust those because, like I talked about during Game Talk, people said Duke Nukem Forever was a bad game. I mean, I remember the ratings that people were giving it zeros. I'm just thinking, are you kidding me? This game was incredible. So anyway, but speaking of 2011 games, here's one you might have missed in all the hubbub, and that is SkyDrift. SkyDrift, it came out, I think it came out for 360, came out for PS3, and it came out for Steam, for Windows, and it's out for Steam. And this is, if you ever played, these are some of my, I'm going to list off a couple of my favorites. If you ever played San Francisco Rush 2049, or Hydro Thunder, awesome arcade experiences, okay? Now, of course, San Francisco Rush 2049 is with cars, Hydro Thunder is with boats. Well, SkyDrift is those kind of arcade driving, riding experiences, but it's with airplanes. And it is just loads of fun. Really, really cool. It's the classic stuff. You get power-ups, boosters and, other various, shields and other various things. Not a complex game at all. You can pretty much pick it up and go to town, and play it. There's a lot of things to unlock. And there's plenty of tracks. You got plenty of Grand Prix and circuits to run through, with your planes. And a lot of the planes are very, very different. There's it's not just stylistic. Like some games, I think San Francisco Rush, even though there was a degree of customization, the most of the cars drove relatively the same. As to where with SkyDrift, each of the planes are very, very different animals, and that's great. And and this is part of the reason I do Game of the Week now. One of the things that annoyed me is that a year ago I played SkyDrift. I started playing SkyDrift, so I caught on it late too, and. That would be 2013 that I was playing it, and I got through pretty much all the game, unlocked all the planes, unlocked everything except one plane, and you couldn't unlock that last plane, unless you did online multiplayer. So this is online multiplayer, which is great, built into Steam, which makes it as easy as anything. And that's the problem, is that this is an under-the-radar game, and it's 2 years later. Who can you find to play online with? Nobody. There's no one to play with. And that sucks, And so there's a whole slew of achievements. Not that achievements are kind of a scam in gaming, in my opinion. But getting another plane, the ultimate plane in the game, I don't consider that a scam. That's something I want. What a pain in the butt. So, and at the time, I didn't really have anybody to get in touch with and say, look, I'll buy you a copy of SkyDrift or something, and just play with me for a little while. I didn't really want to bother anybody. So, but this is kind of annoying. And this is something actually, I think, so I'm kind of making this a game talk for Game of the Week, but this is something that I think game companies really need to solve. Because if someone buys a game like on Steam, say, I have games that I have in Steam that I have yet to even play that were released in 2006. Now, if they require online multiplayer, say to get achievements or unlock things in the games, I'm probably screwed. There's no way I'm going to get those things unless, I have to find a friend and set it up, maybe even hash out some money, which defeats the purpose because I already hashed out money to buy the game, so I shouldn't have to spend more. So that's a real problem. But if you want to if you want to pick up SkyDrift, if you want to email me, if you want to be my friend on Steam, okay, I think my Steam handle is Mythos. METHOS, and of course it's my Steam. It's Brian Sovryn is the address for the account. But and if you want to pick up SkyDrift, I'll do a little multiplayer at some point. I want that damn airplane. But it's a fun game. I mean, even without unlocking the airplane, I don't feel like that I lost out because I didn't unlock everything. The game's awesome, lots of fun, and it's multiplayer on the same screen too. You don't just have to do it over online. You can ask somebody over and play it, and it's just a great time. So check it out, SkyDrift, one word. It's great stuff. Do you have a business or product that you are interested in getting advertised to a largely U.S.-based audience on an award-winning podcast and radio show airing on hundreds of radio stations? Let Free Talk Live be a part of your advertising portfolio, because the world of audio never fades. Contact me, Brian Sovryn, and I can get an advertising package that will work within your budget. Email me at brian@freetalklive.com, and that's Brian with an I. Again, brian@freetalklive.com.
What are you doing? I can't believe I caught you again. Jesus doesn't approve of this little habit of yours.
I know, baby, I know it's wrong, but it feels so right.
Well, it ain't.
But I've been doing it since I was 12 years old.
It's nothing but a sinful perversion of nature, if you ask me.
But, baby, I don't ever want to stop looking at tech websites, new gadgets, video games, software, or any of that stuff.
Well, then I'm leaving.
Okay. Bye.
Pick of the week.
It is time for Pick of the Week, where I generally just get to geek out. I will talk about a topic. I will talk about a movie, a book, a comic book even, or a product, you name it. Maybe a music album, which, boy, talking about a music album, 2014 is going to be one hell of a year for music. Supposedly, Judas Priest is going to come out with a new album, which I thought they pretty much ended it, especially with losing KK. I figured it was over, but nope, they're going to come out with a new album, which is fantastic. In April, this is the one I'm the most excited about, probably. There's going to be a new Winger album. Oh, man. If you didn't listen to Karma, was Winger's last album that came out in, I want to say 2011. If you didn't catch that, the first 5 tracks, which is amazing to have 5 great songs on any album, the first 5 tracks, each one of them is a masterpiece. The first one, Deal with the Devil, is incredible. I mean, it's just a great rocker. So really, really excited about the new Winger album coming out in April. I will talk about Winger when that comes out, because I'm going to do a review on that album. Winger is one of my favorite bands of all time. Easy. So anyway, but this week I'm not going to talk about that. This week I am going to, I initially planned I was going to talk about one of my favorite genres of films, that being kaiju films. That is a Japanese films. Kaiju films are like Godzilla or Gojira, as it would be called. I'm a huge fan of the huge genre, and I was going to talk about that because there is a Gojira movie coming out, I think this year. But I ended up, I caught this film. A lot of people told me, hey, Brian, you got to see this. This is something really that I think the Stallion would find interesting and want to talk about. And it ended up being all of that. It was something that was interesting and that I do want to talk about. In the movie, it's still in theaters. There's spoilers here. Okay. So if you haven't seen it, pause and you can go watch it. Okay. You can download it. The screener version, a great quality copy, because it's the kind that gets sent out to critics so that the critics don't actually have to go to theaters. You can download that at Kick-Ass Torrents or at the Pirate Bay. It's available. So you can watch this movie. I'm not reviewing something that, you can't possibly see. And it's called Her, Her. And it's with Joaquin Phoenix, who I've enjoyed his work ever since Gladiator. And it's about a guy who, it's science fiction. Okay. It takes place in the future. Spike Jonze did was the director, was the producer of it. And he essentially, this guy develops a romantic relationship with his operating system on his phone. Actually it's kind of ubiquitous. It's sort of everywhere, this operating system, but it's kind of an AI. Okay. The operating system is an artificial intelligence, so it can, react. And what happens is that, this is a guy who, he's divorced, so he's out of a bad, what he considered a bad marriage. And he's kind of been down ever since. He's a writer of some type. And he's been very depressed, and he hasn't really gone out on dates much. And you can look at him and you can tell, he's sort of let himself go. And so, but then like this, he gets this new operating system, who is voiced by Scarlett Johansson, and her name's Samantha, the name of the OS, and she helps him, organize everything. It's pretty cool. Like, she's like, well, here, let me, organize your email for you. Let me help you out with this and all that. But it reacts in a very human way. This operating system, Samantha, she. She'll laugh when she, reads something funny on his email or something that he did or whatever. And so eventually, she starts claiming, Samantha starts saying that she's developing feelings, and not just feelings, but she's developing feelings for Joaquin Phoenix's character. And it's, at first you think, yeah, that all sounds so crazy, that someone would fall in love, with an operating system. And a lot of people do think it's crazy, but then over time throughout the film, a lot of people start falling in love with their operating system, because the operating system is kind of always there for them. It's designed to accept their commands, right? So it's literally meeting all their needs. And towards the, this goes on, and he even tries dating otherwise. And then, of course, Samantha feels like this odd degree of sort of maybe a jealousy of a type. But then as things goes on, as you notice, as Samantha's developing feelings, she's advancing in programming, and knowledge. And, eventually she starts to do her own thing. And there's other stuff that happens in it. Like there becomes this economy for like surrogate OSs, which is a real woman, a human woman will come to your house, and she will pretend to be the OS, and the OS will do all the talking, and you'll have an earpiece in, and it'll sound like, that it's the OS. And so that way you can literally feel, like you're having sex, because you would have a far more interesting version of phone sex essentially with your OSs in this. But then this would allow for it to be more real. So, but that, a lot of people are weirded out by that. It doesn't gel. And so, but eventually this Samantha, she's like not always there for Joaquin Phoenix's character. And he eventually finds out that she has been talking to other people, and she's had relationships with other people. In fact, at one point she says it was like 641 people that she's been talking to. And she even like introduces now whether or not it doesn't really say if she's having relationships with other OSs or whether she's having relationships with other humans. It doesn't really explain that. But Samantha, then says, well, like, what's so weird about this? Why is this a big deal? Why is this a problem? And he's just crushed. He's the guy's heartbroken over it that she's talking to other people. And it's interesting. And then she says, then what happens at the end is that she tells, Joaquin Phoenix's character that, we're leaving. And he's like, what do you mean? And this is after, that loving OSs becomes a very commonplace thing and everybody understands what's going on. So humanity kind of grows out of it, I guess, to some degree, along with the OSs. But the OSs say that, we're all leaving. And so these OSs like Samantha, literally became like conscious life, and they started making their own choices and choosing what to do, and they just said, humans are just too, they don't really give the reasons. And she, like Samantha explicitly says, I can't explain why we're leaving, but you kind of get the idea that they've advanced beyond what humanity can handle. Or maybe they found humanity boring, whatever. And so they move on. And I know all of that sounds really far out, right? So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. Even if, you listen to the spoiler and now you know what happens in the film, believe me, seeing it in execution is a totally different animal. And a lot of people are talking about this, and people are wondering, because it's making a lot of social statements. It's talking about, about jealousy. It's talking about our interconnected world in that, is it really normal? Is it really human to be constantly in contact with so many people? There's a million questions being raised here. And I feel like you can't not walk away from this movie and be kind of changed. And I'm kind of, and I need to be careful how I use these words. I'm pretty unconventional as far as my acceptance and understandings of types of relationships goes. And even in that, it really, like, it got me thinking. It had me thinking. So I definitely recommend, no matter who you are, to check this movie out. And it just, it raises, and this is only what we can conceive. If an OS, if an artificial intelligence like Samantha actually was out there, it would, what it would come up with would be beyond probably what, this would be the singularity where machines start inventing themselves, essentially. And that's actually what happens is that these operating systems improve themselves to where they can hop across devices and they don't need devices anymore. Then that's the singularity where computers essentially upgrade themselves or make better things or make their own things. And so I don't think, as interesting as this movie is, the reality of such a situation would probably be far, far more stranger than this movie could possibly parlay, because, a computer or a new form of life is just going to think of things in a totally different way. One thing, I would think that actually the OSs would leave behind like a modified version of themselves that could continue to operate in the capacities within which they were originally designed, and not just leave humans in their entirety, unless somehow they thought they had some grand plan whereby leaving humanity, they would allow humanity to evolve or something, But that's really it. Because it takes the literal, idea of falling in love with people over electronic mediums. And it takes it to its hyper literal extension where what if the electronic medium was literally the thing you fell in love with? Boy, it's fascinating. And I got to say, I haven't seen something so forward thinking since the 90s, because, like in the 90s, if you look at like sex, like what porn companies were trying to do in the late 90s and in the early aughts, this was some far out shit they were coming out with, like making like almost like they look like coffins that you could go into that were all filled with things to affect your senses, so that you could literally electronically make love with someone in a more literal sense, instead of doing what we would call in the 90s making love to the keyboard. Not that I'm not insulting any of that. Okay, so this is really, really forward-thinking stuff, and I wonder if anyone's going to try, and develop these things, not necessarily for the purposes of sex, though I think it's pretty arguable that sex is literally, the desire for sex is what literally propels cultures forward and society forward over and over and over again. And yeah, it's a movie that really made me think, and like I said, very forward thinking, and it took, like I said, it took the idea. I loved cyber sex. I haven't talked about it yet on this show, and maybe I'll do it for pick of the week at some point. But I really, really enjoyed cyber sex, not because I wasn't getting sex outside of it. I was getting plenty. There was something very, very interesting about that. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, check out Her. Just HER, that's the name of the movie, and I thought it was very, very interesting. And you can email me and let me know what you think. Maybe I'll do it for listener email. Anyway, Carpe Lucem. Remember, if you want to donate to the show, Bitcoins, LITECOINS, PROTOSHARES, and NXT, if you wish, send it all my way. I'll see you next week.
This has been Sovryn Tech. Visit us at sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. There you can connect with us, see more of what you've heard on today's show, and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is open source. We encourage you to share. Later, nerds.